Welcome to the American Small Business League podcast. I am Bruce DeTorres, and with me is Jonathan Harris, who is running as a Democrat for Congress in Florida's 16th district. John is a proud U.S. Army veteran, a technology professional. He enlisted in the Army at 20, and he began a career that spanned nearly 2 decades. And he continues to serve as a warrant officer in the U.S. Army Reserve while working as a senior information security advisor supporting U.S. Special Operations Command. Thank you very much for joining me again today. John, how are you?
Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate you having me back on the podcast. This is awesome to catch up with you again.
Great. Well, I want to get this across your website, Jon Harris for Congress.com. And now for folks meeting you for the first time, a bit about your background, your skill set, your competence, and then the issues and things you want for your district, please.
Yeah, obviously, like you laid out, I am a 20-year now Army veteran. So this makes year 20 for me. And as I kind of laid out in our first podcast meeting, I was a frontline soldier, but moved my way up through the enlisted ranks where I got to lead soldiers, not just for combat missions, but for enterprise deployments of small networks or initial networks, right, into contested environments where the enemy might have a foothold, and we want to put communications equipment. So I was able to lead soldiers in that effort, and I think that that's one thing that I missed the last time we spoke is I kind of, I guess, brush it aside, that I have leadership skills, and I just take it for granted that most people in the military do, but it is worth mentioning, right? So and leadership is one of my competencies. Another, like I said, is IT, right? So I live and work in cybersecurity, and I tell you, right before I came to this meeting, I was actually doing IT governance for AI controls. So as we look at how the world is progressing in the world of AI, we need to have some governance there. We need to have some rules and regulations on how we can, implement that, and then implement that with safeguards. So that's one of the things that is in my toolbox. But also coming from a family perspective, right? I'm a husband. I'm a father of two beautiful girls, and I look at the rest of my family dynamic. I have a sister who's a small business owner. I have, a mother who runs a the front office for a small business. And those things I carry with me as well because I see the challenges that they have to go through in order to, make the day to day, or to get operations, or to make sure that business succeeds. So those are some of my competencies in terms of what I bring to the table. I also have a small background in finance because I worked at Raymond James Financial for 10 years. And yeah, that's about it.
Well, thank you. Talk about what are you trying to get your district to know? I guess you must be leading with their major concerns. What are the major concerns of your district, and what are the proposals that you're putting out front and center?
So, and this hasn't really changed since the last time you and I spoke, but affordability, right? We're all still struggling with trying to live in a district where it's really expensive to live. I think when I first tried to buy a home in this district, it was about 190,000 for a three-bedroom, two bath. That same three-bedroom, two bath right now sells for about $350,000. And that's a starter home for most people. And we have to come to grips with the idea that the supply of houses that we have right now is not enough to cover, the majority of people who want to move into this district. So we have to find ways to find affordable housing for folks to live. We have to find ways to make home insurance more affordable for the people who live in this district because home insurance premiums have doubled or tripled in some cases here in Florida because of hurricane risk. And then we also have to find ways to lower the cost of healthcare. One of the unique things about my district is that we have, kind of our working set of people here in Hillsborough County. The upper portion of my district is Hillsborough County. So a lot of people who work here, they work in Tampa, they work on base. And then as you move south into Manatee County, you see a lot more retirees. And the kind of people here in Hillsborough County, they have employer funded healthcare programs. And the people who are down south, they have, Medicare. And those two things are kind of completely different when you look at the I guess concerns, right? So if I have a employer sponsored healthcare program, are my premiums really high? Am I getting enough coverage? If I have Medicare, uh, is it covering enough? Do I have to get gap insurance? And then if I have to get gap, then what does that look like in terms of additional payments that I have to make a month, right? So trying to find a unique way to solve that healthcare problem in terms of affordability is something that I've been trying to get across the finish line. And as a matter of fact, we have published at least the first steps in our healthcare plan, which should address that problem, as well as our growth economy plan, which is I'd say about a 10 step process to how we lower the costs for our constituents here in Central Florida.
Thank you. Go into that a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah, so the growth economy, what we're really looking to do is we're looking to tackle affordability at all phases of life, right? So I am what my constituents consider a younger, person here in the district. So I have to deal with childcare, which sometimes can cost upwards of $2,200 a month for both of my children to be in childcare just so I can participate in the workforce, right? And that's not sustainable for young families. So we want to try and lower the cost of, childcare for people. And one of the ways that we could do that is by allowing people to one, expand the child tax credit from 2,200 per child to $3,000 per child, and then give them the option to get that paid out monthly as opposed to when you file your taxes. And the difference that makes is I have to pay for childcare every month, or actually it's weekly, right? So if I'm able to offset that monthly, I think for me the difference would be about a difference of about $500 a month for my two children. So if I can offset that cost at $500 a month, well, that helps younger families. And then we look at how do we take care of our homeowners here in Florida. I mentioned homeowners insurance is really high. So we look at ways that we can attack that problem. And one of the ways that I found is that homeowners insurance in Florida is only high because of what's called reinsurance. And reinsurance is insurance that insurance companies have on their insurance policies. And I know that sounds very convoluted, but the point there is because of the high premiums that exist within the reinsurance market, sometimes us down here at the bottom will end up having to pay higher premiums because of what the insurance company has to take on. So the federal government can pass a law that would basically cap what an insurance company would pay for that reinsurance insurance. And they would basically pay into this cap, right? So the insurance company's paying into this, but they would say, hey, look, you're capped at this much, so your insurance premiums should never rise over a certain amount. And that does wonders for us because then we're like, okay, well, we don't have to deal with the volatility that comes with insurance. And then we could also look at trying to expand or pool risk across multiple states because while in Florida we do have hurricane risk, that's not all year long. And then other states do have flooding risk or fire risk, but again, that's not all year long. If we pool some states together, we could potentially lower premiums together. And then finally, looking at the third phase of life, right? So if we're retired, then we want to make sure that people are saving as much money as possible. And that's where we go into that healthcare plan. We talk about Medicare, and Medicare is under some financial strain at this point in time. And the reason why that is because of the cost of healthcare services. And for I've done the research on this for the same service in the same facility, Medicare pays one price and a private insurance provider will pay another price. And that normally is 2.5 to 3 times as much as they're paying for Medicare. So one of the things that I was thinking about was, well, why is that so? And really, it's because the healthcare industry, and I'm sure you've seen kind of some of the congressional hearings behind it, it's structured very vertically. The health insurance company owns the pharmacy. They own the providers. They own the what is it, pharmacy benefits managers. So they have a piece of the pie at every step of the way. So the way that we could address this is twofold. One, use antitrust laws to break up those monopolies and make competition actually function in the healthcare system. And then two, we could look at creating a public option, which is basically a taxpayer funded system that would compete with private insurance that is, I guess, for lack of a better word, tagged to Medicare prices. So if Medicare pays a cost, it will pay slightly more, but not as much as your private insurance. And the goal here is again competition, because right now we're seeing a healthcare industry that lacks any real competition. They all kind of, do the same in terms of pricing, and nobody's actually trying to lower their costs. And if we can create a public option that gives them like services for a cheaper premium, well, then they're going to have to compete. They're going to have to come to the table. So looking at all three phases, trying to figure out how we can best lower the cost for everybody. And then, of course, focusing on other campaign priorities. Like I mentioned last time, I'm a veteran, so veterans' health benefits are very important to me. Making sure that Social Security is, solvent past 2033. I think that's when it becomes insolvent. You get 80% of your benefits there. And then obviously trying to make sure that this area, because it is hurricane prone, we look at trying to restructure how we build here so that it is more resilient towards storms.
Talk to me. It's like I said, it's mid late April right around now. Do you have a primary between now and the general?
We do. The primary is on August 18th.
The 16th district of Florida. Is it held now by a Democrat? Is it normally Democrat?
So that is one of the crazy things that's happened since you and I last talked. We had an incumbent who was a Republican. He actually announced that he was going to retire, I want to say the beginning of February. His name is Vern Buchanan, and he had sat in the seat, and I got it wrong last time. This will be his 20th year in the seat. And
Okay.
he obviously announced his retirement. So that's a huge opportunity for both Manatee and Hillsborough County, because we actually get to choose new leadership. And we have a very profound decision to make, right? Is it, more of the same? Because, Donald Trump has already endorsed a candidate. So is it more of the same, or do we want to try a new, fresh perspective? And that's what I'm running for, is that new, fresh perspective.
The president has endorsed a Republican opponent at this time.
Yes, so
Okay.
this would be the RNC chair's wife, Sydney Gruters, and she announced, I want to say at the beginning of this month, that she would enter the race. So he actually,
Is she a resident of the district?
not that I'm aware of. I do believe she lives in Sarasota, which is just south.
When you scratch the surface of your district and you tug people on the sleeve, do your issues address the things that are top of mind for them, or what are do they address like the things they would from the hip complain about?
Absolutely. And one of the things that I did when I first joined this race was actually look at what the issues were. As I continued to run and speak to people, whether that be at club meetings, caucus meetings, a lot of people were saying the exact same things. It's too costly to live here.
Hmm.
Insurance is crazy, both homeowners insurance and health insurance. And then also there's another component. Obviously, you've been watching the news, so there's a lot of chaos with this current administration. And I got an email recently from a one of my potential constituents. He is a longtime Republican voter, and he said that, should I win the primary, he would absolutely vote for me. And one of the reasons why is because of this chaos. He knows what it's like to serve in the military. He served 14 years in the military himself. And his thought is never in his lifetime did he believe that he would be at a position or in a position where he would watch, the federal government operate in the manner which they're doing. The lack of professionalism, the lack of, transparency, and then, it kind of we're giving, I guess, public policy or official policy through tweet or social media platform, and that's not a way to do business. So his thing is he saw my military background, and he knows what it's like to serve. He knows what values and what morals come with that. And he absolutely said he's voted for the president, 3 times. He's voted for the outgoing incumbent every time that he's run. But if I make it past the primary, he's 100% voting for me. So those are some of the things that I'm hearing from my district.
That's really strong. And it sounds, I like, as you described your research into what are the issues, as an IT guy, it's like the diagnostics. You're trying to see, like, okay, I'm not going to assume anything from scratch. Did you turn the computer on? I've actually been asked that when I call my tech guru, so you start from the basics, you assume nothing. So kudos to you. You'd have to analyze your district to that extent if you're going to be competitive in a congressional race. Of your opponents for the Democrat position, is there a favorite from the DNC's point of view?
So the DNC is not supposed to have favorites, especially here locally, right? So we talk about Hillsborough County and Manatee County. There are two, I guess, distinct DECs, and those are your executive committees for both counties. And under them, you have your clubs and caucuses, and nobody really is supposed to pick favorites in terms of for the primary. Once we're past the primary, there's only one candidate. You know, those are the people that they're supporting, right? So have I seen favoritism? I mean, you do have people who kind of have their guy, but not institutionally. And I think that that's a big, kudos to the local parties because, obviously you don't want to have institutional favoritism
Mhm.
as it relates to, going into a primary because that does create a whole bunch of awkward questions about, well, did they actually get a fair shake or not?
Right. Apart from the questions I've asked and the things we've already talked about, are there any things you like to share that are among your favorite points to make as you campaign?
Well, just kind of going back to this idea of affordability, we're also talking about making sure that small businesses can thrive because we know that as prices go higher, bigger businesses, yeah, they're going to take a small cut to their bottom line, but it's the small businesses here locally that face most of the challenges. And some businesses even have to shut their doors because they can't keep up with, the economies of scale that let's say a Walmart has, right?
Mhm.
So as we try and tackle the affordability issue, we're also looking at trying to tackle small business issues as well, because we know that small businesses will drive growth here locally. They'll drive the middle class and expansion of, wealth within that middle class. So those are some of the things that really keep me up at night and why I'm so passionate about solving that affordability, I guess, equation because we want small businesses to thrive.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. After we interview you in last October, and we're proud to endorse you. People should find our endorsement on your site, johnharrisforcongress.com. The small business thing, people can learn all about it, more about it at ASBL.com, our site. Yeah, it's about the small business contracts that go to big businesses, ripping off small businesses. We're nothing but a small business nation. 99.9% of all businesses in America are small businesses. And the big businesses that get small business contracts, this is our favorite. This is our number one pet peeve. Those big businesses don't create new jobs to do that work. They're already big, but real small businesses would create up to 2 million new jobs every year on top of the jobs small businesses normally create, booming the whole economy, if the federal government basically didn't have things arranged where they could plausibly say, oh, we met the goal of 23% of federal contract dollars going to small businesses. Not really. When you parse, and we show how on our site, how they get to that number, you realize the big businesses are getting the vast majority of the federal contract dollars. So that's the number one cleanup. We are in the business of teaching people, and we're thrilled that you're running in support of these things. And whether you talk about them or not in the campaign, I'm just going to hound you when you win, Jon. Okay, what are you going to do about it now? We want to see legislation that fixes this, or at least a pressure campaign, because the president could also uh, address this with his action and concern and pressure to help clean this up. I'm taking another 60 seconds to talk about our don'tcheatwomen.com project. Don'tcheatwomen.com, and people should go there to see how, by increasing the contract dollars that are supposed to go to women-owned small businesses, not only will more jobs get created, and that'll help women's businesses, it'll help women become more economic equals. They are not. Men earn and save more than women, and that lets men dominate in politics, and we need more women in the councils of government, first of all, as a matter of fairness and equality, and second of all, for the sanity of having the whole human race guide the decisions that something like the House and the Senate, let alone state legislatures and every other level of government, is predominantly men, and it does skew the decisions that get made for the health and the happiness and the sanity of humanity here in the United States. I'll pause to get your thoughts about anything I just said.
I mean, you're completely right on all counts, and I think I remember sharing a story with you previously about how I've personally seen um, the contracts kind of get, moved about, and okay, well, I've got this sub here that's going to take it, but they really just work for the big man over here, so that's not really creating, jobs. And yes, women-owned businesses need to represent more because, like you said, they need a greater stake, greater skin in the game when it comes to having a seat at the table to get those contract dollars. So
Thank
do
you.
hold my feet to the fire. Absolutely.
I will. And I forgot to mention, but you've heard this from me before. The most compelling argument for boosting the amount of contract dollars that could and should get steered to women owned small businesses is this: women own 40% of all businesses in the United States, and they sell what the government buys. And right now, over 95% of all federal contract dollars go to companies owned by men. And that must change flat out right there. And then the rest, good things will follow. This has been a very great conversation from my point of view. What would you repeat your website and then share your final thoughts with me, Jon?
Yeah. So the website is johnharrisforcongress.com. And yeah,
JON.
and of the candidates in this district, I am one of only two who actually live in the district. I am one of only two that have served in the military, but I'm the only one that has served in the military for half of my life. What I'm trying to say is that this has always been about service to me. I wanted to serve the people who were to my left and my right in those combat situations. And I'm running because this is about service. And I want to be of help in the place where I see that we need help the most, which is Congress. So if you're in my district, please do reach out to me. We do need more volunteers. We could always use campaign contributions. But if you're not in my district, follow me on social media, be a part of the conversation. And again, donations are always welcome. But thank you, Bruce, for having me on again. I really do appreciate this, and I really do appreciate the endorsement. It does mean a lot, especially because obviously this is my first time running for Congress, so having your endorsement is huge.
Well, thank you. You are to be commended by putting your money where your mouth is in terms of the work it takes to want to serve your fellow Americans in your district. I want to thank you very much, Jon. Jon Harris for Congress.com, JON. And now I will thank everybody for watching and listening today.